In 2024, Jewish students at Columbia University were told to stay home for their own safety, warned that their presence on campus could spark violence. In California, a Jewish student woke to find her dorm room door defaced with hateful slurs, her identity a target. In London, Jewish societies were shouted down, their events cancelled, their members harassed into silence. This isn't a grim echo of the 1930s, it's the reality of Western academia today. A war is being waged, not with weapons or fists, but with fear, exclusion, and a relentless ideological assault. Its target: Jewish students and anyone who dares express support for the Jewish state, Israel. What began as protests over policy has spiraled into something far darker, an organised, escalating campaign of hostility cloaked in the rhetoric of social justice that threatens not just Jewish students, but the very soul of higher education. Since the horrors of October 7, 2023, when Hamas's attack on Israel killed 1,200 and 250 hostages, this war has intensified, spreading like wildfire across campuses from New York to Sydney. In this JTV documentary, we're going to uncover the shocking incidents that have left Jewish students afraid to walk to class, the ideological currents fueling this crisis, and the institutional failures that allow it to fester. We'll hear the voices of students who have faced harassment, professors pressured into silence, and activists fighting back against the tide of hate. We'll expose how this campaign, masquerading as free speech, is nothing less than anti-Semitism repackaged and normalised. This is the story of a battle unfolding in our universities, a fight for safety, dignity, and the future of free thought. Join us as we reveal the truth behind this war on Jewish students and what it means for us all. The war on Jewish students didn't erupt overnight, but the October 7, 2023 attack by Hamas on Israel, killing 1,200 civilians and taking 250 hostages, ignited a firestorm on Western campuses. Protests swept universities, but they weren't calls for peace or dialogue, they were displays of rage, often laced with anti-Semitic venom. At Columbia University's Cooper Union Library, Jewish students were trapped inside as protesters pounded on windows, chanting "Globalize the Intifada," a call for violent uprising against Jews. At Harvard, posters of kidnapped Israeli children were ripped down within hours, some defaced with swastikas or slurs like "Zionist scum." At UCLA, a Jewish student's dorm was vandalised with "Zionist pig" scrawled in red paint, her personal belongings strewn across the hall. In the UK, at University College London, Jewish Society members were doxxed, their names, photos and addresses shared online with accusations of complicity in genocide. At the University of Sydney, a Jewish student was spat on during a protest, told to go back to Israel by a crowd of waving Palestinian flags. By 2025, incidents continued unabated. At Yale, Jewish students were blocked from walking freely on campus by jihadist protesters. Echoing segregation tactics in the modern era. At CUNY's Queen's College, Jewish adjunct professors were purged from the accounting department amid rising anti-Semitic violence, with the school allegedly keeping younger, non-Jewish educators while ousting experienced Jewish staff. The scale is staggering. Hillel International tracked a record 2,334 anti-Semitic incidents on US college campuses during the 2024 to 2025 academic year, the highest number ever recorded. The 2024 audit of anti-Semitic incidents reported a fourth consecutive year of increases, reaching the highest levels since tracking began in 1979. In the UK, the Community Security Trust recorded a 96% surge in anti-Semitic incidents at universities post-October 7th. Protests, often led by groups like Students for Justice in Palestine, glorified violence with slogans like "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free" and "We are Hamas." At Stanford, flyers praised the October 7th massacre as heroic resistance, while at the University of Toronto, students chanted "Intifada until victory" outside a Jewish student centre. At McGill University in Montreal, an encampment displayed Hamas and Hezbollah flags, unchallenged by campus security. These weren't debates about Israeli policy, they were celebrations of terror aimed at intimidating Jewish students and their allies. In 2025, the pattern persisted, with Yale allowing jihadists to attack Jewish students, professors and speakers, only halted by private security. Personal stories paint a vivid picture. Rachel, a sophomore at NYU, hid her Star of David necklace after classmates in a lecture hall called her a colonizer and demanded she denounce Israel. David, a graduate student at Oxford, was doxxed after speaking at a pro-Israel event, his phone number and address shared in a Telegram group with 15,000 members, leading to death threats. At UC Berkeley, a Jewish freshman named Leah was spat on during a protest told she didn't belong in America. At the University of Manchester, a Jewish student named Eli was followed home after a debate. His car tyres were slashed with a note reading, "Zionist filth." In 2025 at the University of Michigan, a Jewish student reported being physically shoved during a rally, with protesters shouting, "Jews will not replace us." At George Washington University, Jewish dorms were targeted with graffiti like "Free Palestine from Zionist occupation." A student at Queen's College described the purge of Jewish professors as a clean house effort, leaving only tenured elderly Jews who would soon retire. These students aren't political firebrands, they're young people trying to study, targeted for their Jewish identity or support for Israel's right to exist. The message is unmistakable. Being openly Jewish on campus is a risk, and supporting Israel is a provocation. This wave of hostility is no accident. It's rooted in an ideological shift that has reshaped Western academia. Critical race theory and intersectionality, frameworks designed to address systemic injustice, have been twisted into tools against Jews. In the simplistic oppressor versus oppressed binary, Jews are labelled white or privileged, erasing their 2,000-year history of persecution from Roman expulsions to the Holocaust to the Arab world. Israel, a nation built by refugees and survivors on their ancestral land, is branded a colonial outpost, its Jewish indigeneity dismissed as a myth. This narrative, pervasive in lecture halls and student activism, casts Jews and Israel as the ultimate villains in a global struggle for justice, stripping them of their humanity and history. Anti-Semitism, hiding behind anti-Zionism, is the engine of this crisis, with a demand for the destruction of the Jewish state. For the 80% of Jewish students who feel a connection to Israel, possibly more than that per a 2024 Brandeis Center survey, this creates an impossible bind. Professors teach courses framing Israel as an apartheid regime, ignoring its 20% Arab population, or the Jewish people's 3,000-year tie to the land. At the University of Michigan, a syllabus describes Zionism as settler colonialism, with no mention of the 850,000 Jews expelled from Arab countries after 1948. Student groups like SJP distribute pamphlets calling Zionism white supremacy, equating Jewish self-determination in their ancient homeland with oppression. This isn't academic discourse, it's ideological warfare. Comprehensive research in 2025 revealed SJP's links to Hamas funding, amplifying anti-Americanism and violent extremism on campuses. The classroom has become a battleground. At Georgetown, a Jewish student was told by a teaching assistant that her pro-Israel essay was problematic and risked a lower grade. At King's College London, a lecturer praised Palestinian resistance in class, leaving Jewish students afraid to respond. A 2023 report found 41% of Jewish students self-censor to avoid harassment, while 29% avoid courses with anti-Israel content. At the University of Chicago, a Jewish student named Rachel was publicly shamed in a seminar for defending Israel's right simply to defend itself, her professor accusing her of perpetuating violence. In 2025, an AJC survey revealed that 43% of Jewish college students avoided expressing views about Israel due to fears of anti-Semitism. The message is clear. To belong, Jews must renounce Israel or stay silent. This ideology distorts history to fit its narrative. Intersectionality links the Palestinian cause to other struggles like anti-racist causes and indigenous rights, while ignoring the clear differences between that and the Arab-Israeli conflict. The 1948 Nakba is taught as a singular catastrophe, ignoring the fact that it only occurred as a result of the Jewish people launching a defensive war when being attacked from surrounding armies wanting its destruction. Meanwhile, the expulsion of 850,000 Jews from Arab lands is rarely mentioned. Anti-Semitic tropes, Jews as powerful, manipulative or disloyal, re-emerge under the guise of anti-Zionism. At UC Santa Barbara, a professor claimed Israel controls US foreign policy. echoing age-old conspiracies. At the University of Amsterdam, a student group distributed flyers alleging Jewish students wield disproportionate influence on campus. A Brandeis University report on Campus Voices highlights how these narratives have led to Jewish students feeling alienated and unsafe. In 2025, new research from Stress Health Journal examined stress, coping, and depressive symptoms among Jewish students post-October 7th, finding widespread trauma from campus anti-Semitism. This selective storytelling fuels a climate where Jews are dehumanized, their suffering erased, and their identity weaponized. Universities, meant to be sanctuaries of free thought, have failed Jewish students spectacularly. Administrations often respond to anti-Semitic incidents with vague calls for dialogue or inclusion, avoiding clear condemnation. At Columbia, after Jewish students were trapped in the Cooper Union Library, the university issued a statement urging mutual respect, but didn't mention anti-Semitism. At Harvard, where anti-Israel protests disrupted exams, administrators cited free expression while ignoring the intimidation. A 2024 Brandeis Center study found 66% of Jewish students believe their universities dismiss anti-Semitic complaints, compared to 12% for other minority groups. Diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) programs designed to protect marginalized groups often exclude or target Jews. DEI frameworks classify Jews as white or privileged, ignoring their history of unparalleled persecution. At Stanford, a DEI workshop labelled concerns about anti-Semitism as Zionist propaganda, alienating Jewish attendees. At UC Davis, DEI staff joined an anti-Israel protest, chanting "Intifada, Intifada," leaving Jewish students feeling utterly betrayed. A 2023 survey by the Louis D. Brandeis Center found 57% of Jewish students felt DEI officers ignored their concerns, while 22% reported being told their complaints were exaggerated. This double standard reveals a stark truth. Jews are not seen as a protected minority. Faculty complicity deepens the crisis. Some professors openly endorse anti-Israel activism, creating hostile classrooms. At NYU, a Jewish student was docked points for a paper defending Israel's security measures, the professor citing bias. At the University of Manchester, Jewish academics reported pressure to avoid teaching about Israel, fearing backlash from colleagues. A 2024 Hillel International report found 30% of Jewish students avoid classes with known anti-Israel professors, narrowing their academic options. At CUNY, a professor displayed a Free Palestine banner in class, dismissing Jewish students' discomfort as oversensitivity. The data is damning. A 2023 survey found 43% of Jewish students experienced or witnessed anti-Semitic incidents on campus, from slurs to physical threats. In the UK, the Union of Jewish Students reported a 200% increase in complaints since October 2023. Yet universities rarely act decisively. When SJP chapters at NYU and Brandeis were suspended for violating codes of conduct, posting calls for resistance by any means, protests accuse administrators of silencing Palestinian voices, deflecting from the anti-Semitic nature of their actions. At the University of Pennsylvania, a task force on anti-Semitism was met with faculty petitions claiming it stifled free speech. In 2025, the US Department of Justice Federal Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism visited 10 campuses experiencing high incidents, highlighting systemic failures. This failure sends a chilling message. Jewish student safety and inclusion are secondary to appeasing vocal activists. A 2025 campus anti-Semitism report card showed some progress, with over 50% of schools implementing policy changes, but many still failing, like Harvard receiving a C and Columbia under scrutiny. Brandeis University earned an A for its efforts, but the overall trend reveals persistent inaction. In response, the Trump administration in 2025 cut $400 million in federal funding to Columbia University for failing to protect Jewish students, part of a broader review of $5 billion in grants. The Department of Education initiated Title VI investigations into 60 institutions, warning of further cuts if anti-Semitic discrimination continued. This war is not spontaneous. It's orchestrated. Groups like Students for Justice in Palestine, active on over 250 campuses across the US, Canada, and Europe, coordinate protests, walkouts, and Days of Resistance events. Their playbooks, shared globally via encrypted apps, call for disrupting classes, occupying buildings, and targeting Zionists, quote-unquote, for harassment. At CUNY, SJP led a protest that locked Jewish students out of a Hillel event, chanting "Zionists out." At McGill University, SJP's Solidarity Encampment displayed Hamas and Hezbollah flags, with participants calling for Israel's destruction. At the University of Melbourne, SJP organised a boycott of Jewish-owned campus businesses, labelling them complicit in genocide. Funding powers this campaign. A 2024 report by the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy revealed Hamas-linked funding to SJP, tracing millions from groups like American Muslims for Palestine, AMP, which oversees SJP and has ties to Islamist organisations with funding from Qatar and the Muslim Brotherhood. Congress investigated AMP in 2024, noting its role in campus unrest. Additional sources include the Tides Foundation and Open Society Foundations funneling over $10 million to anti-Israel groups. These resources supply protest kits, posters, and digital campaigns that vilify Jewish students as settlers or oppressors. A 2023 investigation found 60% of anti-Israel campus events included anti-Semitic rhetoric, often imported from these networks. In 2025, the Senate Help Committee launched an investigation into AMP's alleged ties to Hamas and anti-Semitic violence on campus. The House Oversight Committee continued probing groups funding illegal encampments and pro-Hamas activities. Global coordination is a hallmark. SJP's annual national conference shares strategies across continents. Social media amplifies their reach, with Telegram and X groups spreading lists of Zionist students and faculty, some with over 20,000 members. At the University of Toronto, a Jewish student's home address was shared online, leading to vandalism. At UCLA, a professor's pro-Israel op-ed triggered a petition for his dismissal, organised by SJP and amplified globally. This isn't grassroots activism, it's a calculated effort to isolate and intimidate Jewish students, backed by a well-funded transnational network. A 2025 Combat Antisemitism Movement report detailed SJP's suspended chapters and ongoing influence. The human toll is profound. Jewish students are hiding their identities, removing kippahs, avoiding Jewish events, or concealing their support for Israel. A 2024 Hillel International survey found 34% of Jewish students have considered transferring or dropping out due to hostility, while 27% have changed majors to avoid anti-Israel departments. At UC Santa Cruz, a Jewish student named Miriam switched from Middle Eastern studies to biology after her professor labelled Zionism racist in class. At the University of Amsterdam, a Jewish student stopped attending lectures after being harassed in a WhatsApp group with 200 classmates. Career fears are pervasive. A 2023 Jewish on-campus survey found 48% of Jewish students worry that pro-Israel views could jeopardise job or graduate school prospects. At Yale, a law student was denied a clerkship after a professor flagged his pro-Israel activism as controversial. At the University of Bristol, a Jewish graduate was rejected from a PhD program after her interviewer questioned her allegiance to Israel. Faculty face similar pressures. A Jewish professor at the University of Illinois was denied tenure after speaking at a pro-Israel rally, with colleagues citing his divisive stance. The psychological impact is devastating. A 2024 American Jewish Committee study found 61% of Jewish students reported mental health struggles tied to campus anti-Semitism, from anxiety to depression. A report 1 year after October 7th revealed 83.2% of Jewish students experienced or witnessed anti-Semitism, leading to trauma symptoms. At the University of Edinburgh, a student named Sarah stopped attending Jewish Society meetings after her name appeared on a doxing list, fearing for her safety. At USC, Daniel described a low-grade fear walking to class, checking over his shoulder for protesters. A 2024 study in PubMed Central linked exposure to anti-Semitism with increased trauma symptoms among Jewish undergraduates. Nearly 70% of Jewish college students observed anti-Israel and anti-Semitic behaviour affecting their mental health, per a new study. In 2025, research in Stress Health Journal confirmed elevated depressive symptoms among Jewish students due to campus anti-Semitism post-October 7th. Another study explored how anti-Semitism impacts Jewish students' daily occupations and mental health. Some students turn to therapy, others withdraw entirely. This isn't just discomfort, it's a deliberate campaign to make Jewish students feel unwelcome in spaces meant for learning. A 2025 Queen's Jewish Link article highlighted new research showing 70% of students facing mental health issues from anti-Semitism. Even in the mental health field, Zionists face backlash, with Jewish professionals reporting increased anti-Semitism since October 7th. Defenders of these protests cry free speech, but this war crosses a clear line. Debate is essential, but calls for genocide, glorification of terrorism, or targeted harassment are not protected speech. In the US, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act prohibits discrimination based on national origin, including Jewish identity. In the UK, the Equality Act protects against religious discrimination. In Canada, hate speech laws ban incitement to violence, yet universities rarely enforce these protections for Jews. At the University of Chicago, a protest featured signs reading "Zionist to the gas chamber," yet administrators called it protected expression. At the University of British Columbia, a rally glorified the October 7th attack with no disciplinary action. The distinction is stark. Criticising Israeli policy is legitimate. Chanting "Globalize the Intifada," a call for violent uprising, or celebrating the murder of 1,200 Israelis is not. At UC Irvine, a Jewish student was physically blocked from entering a lecture hall by protesters, yet the university cited free speech and took no action. This double standard reveals a deeper issue. Free speech is being weaponized to protect hate against Jews, while silencing their concerns. In 2025 Executive Order 14188, it mandated additional measures to combat anti-Semitism, directing agencies to enforce Title VI more rigorously. Some courts rejected this on First Amendment grounds, like at Haverford College, but others advanced, such as against George Washington University, for pervasive anti-Semitism. Jewish students are not passive victims, they're fighting back. Legal action is surging, with Title VI lawsuits filed against Columbia, Harvard, UPenn and MIT for failing to protect Jewish students. The Louis D. Brandeis Center has supported over 50 cases, securing injunctions against discriminatory practices. Alumni are wielding financial leverage. In 2024, donors to Harvard and Columbia pulled over $200 million in funding, citing unchecked anti-Semitism. At Stanford, a Jewish alumnus launched a campaign to withhold donations until the university addresses campus hostility. In 2025, the HHS Civil Rights Office found Harvard in violation of Title VI for anti-Semitic discrimination. A settlement in a Columbia School of Social Work students' lawsuit addressed anti-Semitic harassment. Jewish organizations are stepping up. Camera and Stand With Us provide resources to counter anti-Israel narratives. From fact sheets to speaker series, Hillel and Chabad offer safe spaces, hosting events that rebuild and strengthen Jewish pride. Jewish organizations track incidents and lobby for policy changes, while the Brandeis Center offers legal aid. Courageous non-Jews are joining the fight. At Columbia, Professor John McWhorter wrote scathing op-eds against anti-Semitism, risking his reputation. At UPenn, student Eyal Yacobi founded a coalition to support Jewish students, gaining 2,000 members across campuses. In the UK, the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism recruits people to support Jewish students, as does Stand With Us. B'nai B'rith runs the 2025 None Shall Be Afraid essay contest for Jewish students to raise awareness, offering scholarships. I wrote a chapter in a new book entitled Young Zionist Voices, featuring young people that stand up for Israel and support Israel all around the world. Students are organising. At NYU, Sarah, a senior doxed for her pro-Israel views, co-founded a group to educate about Jewish history, drawing 300 attendees to the first event. At the University of Toronto, a Jewish student named Jacob won a student government seat to challenge SJP's dominance, advocating for stricter hate speech policies. These efforts show resilience, but the battle is daunting against a well-funded, ideologically driven campaign. Federations like JFEDLA empower Jewish students with programs combating campus hate. The war on Jewish students is a stain on Western academia, a betrayal of its mission to foster truth, inquiry and inclusion. When the most historically persecuted minority in the world is harassed, silenced and erased under the guise of justice, universities have lost their moral compass. This isn't just a Jewish problem, it's a civilizational one. If campuses cannot protect the safety and dignity of all students, they've abandoned their purpose. The fight for a Jewish student is a fight for the soul of education, a fight for a future where ideas triumph over hate. As Jewish students and their allies stand their ground, driven by courage and conviction, one question looms. Will universities rise to meet this challenge, or will they let this war consume the next generation? And before we conclude, may I just say this. We've seen how universities have lost their moral direction, and Jews are going to stand up to this, resist it, and reclaim their Jewish pride. I would even suggest to you that there's one thing more that we can do, one thing that many of you may not have even imagined before, that actually it needs to now be the Jewish people that provide that source of morality and teaching that to their fellow colleagues on campuses and to the world at large. Before we finish, I just want to share with you something really important. We are told that Israel's actions are the cause of the Israeli-Arab conflict, but we've just released a groundbreaking documentary proving that Arab Islamic Jew hatred far predates Israel's re-establishment. This is a critical fact that everyone needs to learn about. Have a watch of our trailer for our new JTV Plus documentary entitled Arab Anti-Semitism Before Israel's Re-Establishment. Picture yourself, it's 1834 and you're a Jew living in Tzfat, which is a northern city in Israel, then under the Ottoman Empire. Your family is part of this ancient city's spiritual heart for generations. You study Torah, you trade in the market, and live quietly among your Arab neighbours. But one day, a mob storms your street, shouting, "Kill the Jews!" Your home is looted, your synagogue burned, your loved ones beaten. This isn't about Israel. Israel won't exist for 114 years. This isn't about settlements, the IDF, or the 1948 displacements. This is raw, violent hatred aimed at you for being a Jew. And it's not just in Palestine, it's part of a centuries-old story of anti-Semitism woven into Arab and Islamic history, from the dawn of Islam to the streets of Hebron. The claim that this conflict began with Israel's creation, the Nakba, or modern policies, is a farce, a distortion that collapses under history's magnifying glass. Welcome to JTV Plus. I'm Ollie Annisfeld, and today we're uncovering a history too often buried, the relentless anti-Semitism among Arabs in Palestine before 1948, rooted in a broader Arab and Muslim hostility that began with Islam's inception in the 7th century. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.